It was a fun weekend of college football. 3 top 5 teams lost, which means we probably have some changes in Brad Crawford's college football playoff projected bracket. We have no idea what will happen, but we sure love talking about some of these hypothetical matchups. There's some new rivalries, some old rivalries, some faces going back to face their old squads. So let's go ahead and fill this thing out and welcome in our friend Brad Crawford. Brad, let's start with the first round. Indiana, Texas A&M. Who you got?
Yeah, the 9-8 game, Big Ten, Indiana. Going to be one of the last teams in. If the Hoosiers can win 10 games, I think they'll be in. Going to College Station. I don't know if Indiana's ever played at Kyle Field, but that is a tough environment. I've got Texas A&M winning that first round matchup.
I think that's the best part of these playoffs is those first round games that the teams get to host. And along those lines, I mean, Texas Tech would get to host a playoff game in your eyes here, hosting USF, which I think it's fair to say we can call it a winnable game for them. But they put a lot of investment into this team in the offseason, and it would certainly pay off if they're able to host.
Yeah, Red Raiders have been our preseason Big 12 favorite the last few weeks, have been since July, and they just keep winning. But there's 4 unbeaten teams right now in the Big 12. Texas Tech is one of them. I think if the Red Raiders win that conference, they're going to be at least guaranteed first-round home game against my current G5 favorite, USF. Could it be Memphis winning the American? Could it be the Bulls under Alex Golesh? All we know is Alex Golesh, the coach of USF, he's getting wanted by several of these open Power 4 vacancies, and you can see why after this hot start.
Yeah, but you have Texas Tech winning that game. Elsewhere in the first round, Notre Dame at Alabama. I mean, a ratings bonanza. This is what we call a helmet game with 2 storied programs. Who you got winning, though?
Yeah, this feels more like a semifinal matchup, doesn't it? And we get to the first round inside Bryant-Denny. I think Alabama wins this game. Notre Dame will be lucky to get to the playoff. I do think if the Fighting Irish went out and get to 10-2, they're going to be there. But Alabama, man, right now, along with Ole Miss, those are my top 2 teams from the SEC.
Yeah, I think the headline there is that you do have Notre Dame still in your playoff. A lot of people writing them off after starting the season 0-2. Some people writing off the Penn State Nittany Lions, but not you. You have them as a 10 seed facing 7-seeded Georgia.
Yeah, they could have laid down in the fourth quarter Friday night, but they forced overtime, did play well, and then Drew Aller made that critical mistake. I think Georgia wins this game between the hedges. Imagine the ticket price for this game, Emily. In December, between the hedges for Penn State, Georgia, that would be a coveted ticket. I think Bulldogs move on.
Yeah, that's another one of those matchups that you could see potentially playing out in the semifinals. All right, the quarterfinals are set. We've got some big-time matchups. Let's start at the top with the 1 seed versus the 8 seed. That's right, the Buckeyes are in this thing going for a back-to-back national title. Who is moving on to the semis?
Yeah, I think Buckeyes avoid the first-round upset, something Oregon could not do at the Rose Bowl last year. I do like Mike Elko versus Ryan Day, kind of battle of the minds there inside Ohio Stadium. But Ohio State, a little bit more talented roster-wise than Texas A&M. I would take my projected Big Ten favorite, Ohio State, to win that one.
All right, you've got Texas Tech versus Oregon. Do the Ducks win their opening game in the playoff this year?
They do. They get a favorable matchup this time around. Dan Lanning has a chance to go back undefeated back-to-back regular seasons. Very impressive what he's done so far in the Big Ten. This is where the hot streak for Texas Tech ends and Oregon moves on.
All right, so the Ducks are moving on in your bracket. Elsewhere in the quarterfinals, you have Alabama and Ole Miss. This is such a juicy matchup. Lane Kiffin, I'm sure, is going to have some fun things to say on Twitter ahead of this one. But what happens when these two meet on the field?
Yeah, I'm sure Nick Saban will have some things to say pregame too when he's, going through this one on the game day staff. But I think Ole Miss right now is my SEC favorite. Trinidad Chambliss at quarterback is doing some crazy things on third down, had a couple really nice plays against LSU. Believe it or not, this is Lane Kiffin's best team he's had in Oxford, and he's had several 10, 11-win seasons there. But right now, Ole Miss, Alabama, I think we see this matchup twice, and I've got Ole Miss moving on to the semis.
Speaking of familiar faces, the Beck Bowl. You have Georgia facing Miami here in the quarterfinals. You talk about just the conversation headed into this one. I want this to happen, but what happens when they play?
Yeah, I bet Kirby Smart wants it too. He's probably licking his chops defensively because he knows what Carson Beck's weaknesses are. However, Miami, I think they're going to be 13-0 in the playoff. They're going to win the ACC, run the table the rest of the way. Miami's a team that I don't think will be stopped, perhaps until the postseason. I've got Miami beating Georgia in the Carson Beck Bowl.
All right, we have the semifinal. It is officially set. We have a CFP quarterfinal rematch at the Rose Bowl between Ohio State and Oregon. This one would, I don't know if we played at the Rose Bowl. We still have some things to figure out there. How about Ole Miss and Miami, though, that 3-2 matchup? Two teams that I think were obviously playoff hopefuls going into the season, but that would really exceed expectations. But let's start with that first game, the rematch of what we saw last year in the college football playoff. Oregon and Ohio State. Who you got?
Yeah, probably going to see this one twice this fall too, Emily, because these two teams right now are projected to meet in the Big Ten championship game after the Ducks beat the Nittany Lions. I think the 1 seed Ohio State moves on here. They're going to do just enough defensively to slow down Dante Moore and Oregon's offense. And Julian Say and Jeremiah Smith, maybe they hook up for a fourth quarter touchdown to move on to the playoff title game.
All right, and you've got Ole Miss and Miami. Trinidad Chambliss from Division II Ferris State leading his team to the college football playoff semifinal. I already went and wrote the headline for you, but how long does this magical run last?
It finally ends here, but Ole Miss would be the story of college football season without a doubt. Trinidad Chambliss, can he hold his job over Austin Simmons the next 9 or 10 weeks? We will see, but I like what Ole Miss is doing on both sides of the football right now. However, Miami has a better defensive line, maybe the best pass rush in college football, and they're going to do enough to move on to play Ohio State.
The national championship, Ohio State, Miami, a home game for the Hurricanes in Hard Rock Stadium. Who takes home the title?
Mario Cristobal. He gets the confetti falling on his head, and the MVP of that game will be a defensive player, Ruben Bain. I think he should be a dark horse Heisman candidate right now because of the havoc he is causing on the defensive line. And for the first time all season, Julian Sayin has a guy in his face throughout that game. Miami and the U is back.
And here I was told that Mario Cristobal couldn't win the big one. I think winning a national title would be considered, quote, the big one. Carson Beck, though, is the Heisman Trophy second favorite. But, yeah, on the other side of things, you could certainly make a case for Ruben Bain. This is a great podcast. If you have not listened, you are missing out all the good information on the college football insiders. Watch now, scan the QR code, and listen.